We're live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. India hails the US's action to designate the Resistance Front as a terrorist organization. External Affairs Minister says move reiterates India's stand of zero tolerance for terrorism. Also says it reinforces Trump's demand for justice for the Pahalgam attack. In yet another test of its missile prowess, India successfully tests short-range ballistic missiles, Prithvi 2 and Agni 1 of Odisha coast, demonstrating credible strategic deterrence capability. Tariff war of words escalates as Brazil's president terms Trump's threats as unacceptable blackmail, says there is no logic to US tariff threat. EU readies retaliatory list targeting US services. Massive victory for cryptocurrency as US House passes stablecoins bill, sends to President Trump to sign it into law. House also approves 2 other crypto bills. And in sports, Indian wrestler Sujeet Kalkal clinches gold medal at ranking series tournament in Hungary. And on to the details now. India has hailed the US's move to designate Pakistani group the Resistance Front as a terrorist organization, asserting that it is a strong affirmation of India-US counter-terrorism cooperation. In a tweet on social media X, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said, and I quote, appreciate Secretary of State Marco Rubio and US State Department for designating TRF, a Lashkar-e-Taiba proxy, as a foreign terrorist organization and specially designated global terrorist. It claimed responsibility for the April 22nd Pahalgam attack, a zero tolerance for terrorism. And separately, India's Ministry of External Affairs has issued a statement saying, and I quote, the Government of India welcomes the decision of the United States Department of State to designate the Resistance Front, TRF, as a foreign terrorist organization and as a specially designated global terrorist. We acknowledge and appreciate the leadership of Secretary of State Marco Rubio in this regard. The TRF, a proxy of the Pakistan-based terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, has been involved in numerous terror-related activities, including the heinous attacks on civilians in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd of April 2025, for which it twice claimed responsibility. India has consistently emphasized the need for global cooperation in the fight against terrorism and the dismantling of terror infrastructure. The designation of TRF is a timely and important step, reflecting the deep cooperation between India and the United States on counter-terrorism. While India remains committed to a policy of zero tolerance towards terrorism and will continue to work closely with its international partners to ensure that terrorist organizations and their proxies are held accountable. And earlier, in a statement released on Thursday, Secretary Marco Rubio described the terror outfit as a front and proxy of Lashkar-e-Taiba, a UN-designated terrorist group that is based in Pakistan. He further added in a statement that these actions taken by the Department of State demonstrates the Trump administration's commitment to protecting our national security interest, countering terrorism and enforcing President Trump's call for justice for the Pahalgam attack. Rubio said that TRF and its associated alliances have now been officially added to Lashkar-e-Taiba's designation as both FTO and SDGT under Section 219 of the Immigration and Nationality Act and Executive Order 13224, respectively. The designation amendments will take effect upon publication in the Federal Register. The U.S. earlier reaffirmed its strong support for India's fight against terrorism and the bilateral strategic partnership during the visit of an Indian all-party parliamentary delegation. And India's Amritpal Singh joins us for more on this. Well, Amrit, a major victory for India's efforts as the US puts TRF on the designated terrorist. MEA also has welcomed the decision. What does it mean for India?
Well, it means it's an important step, as the Ministry of External Affairs is saying, in the counter-terrorism cooperation between the two countries. Given the fact that the United States has now designated the TRF as a foreign terrorist organization and a specially designated global terror organization, something which India had been pushing for a very long time. This is not the first time that India had raised the TRF issue. Even before the Pahalgam attack, India had asked, pleaded before both the UNSC and told the United States that this is just a front and a proxy for the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is a banned organization, which is a designated organization by the US. It's LET by another name. After the Pahalgam attack, the United States realized the gravity of it, so it's a welcome step, but in another step in the deep terror cooperation, as the Indian Foreign Ministry has put it.
All right, Amrit, for the benefit of our viewers, if you could explain what exactly is TRF?
Okay, TRF is the resistance front. It's also known by another name, the Kashmir Front. It is a terror organization which operates out of Pakistan. Once the Lashkar-e-Taiba was banned and put on the designated list, they changed the name to Jamaat-ud-Dawa. Then, the activities of Jamaat-ud-Dawa also came under the scanner. They launched this organization, which was essentially Hafiz Saeed and his LET were using this organization for terrorist activities in Jammu and Kashmir. And they consistently kept sending terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir. So the TRF operates out of the headquarters in Muridke. We have seen there is one terrorist by the name of Sadil Jatt, who is said to have conspired, hatched this whole conspiracy of the Pahalgam attacks, keeping in Pakistan. He's a commander of the Lashkar. So he recruited a man called Suleiman, who crossed into India in 2022. He ambushed an army vehicle, was successful in, martyring 5 of our soldiers. Then he lay low for about, 2.5 years. The care was taken that no Kashmiri organizations are used lest the word goes out. So they kept fixing it on the FTO. So clearly, this is, as India has been consistently saying, the handiwork of the TRF.
All right. All right, Amrit. Also, does this US announcement signal a deepening of the India-US collaboration in counter-terrorism efforts and affirmation, basically, for cooperation?
Yes, it does. And as I said, the Ministry of External Affairs says it's an important step in counter-terrorism. And look at what Marco Rubio has said, and the State Department's press release says. It says that it is a part of the efforts of that this designation is a part of the efforts to protect, one, the national security of the United States, two, the counterterrorism efforts, and third, President Trump's call for justice in the Pahalgam attacks. So clearly, it is a step in the deep cooperation and ongoing cooperation between the two sides on countering terror.
Right, Amrit. Also, is Pakistan again likely to come under a renewed international focus for allegedly harboring these groups linked to Lashkar and its offshoots?
Could you repeat that question again, please?
I was saying, is Pakistan likely to come under pressure now, international focus for allegedly harboring these groups linked to Lashkar and its offshoots?
Okay, now that's an interesting question because Pakistan will, take the playbook they'll
Right.
deny and saying that TRF, we don't support the TRF, it's a terrorist organization, we ourselves are victims of terror, and if the US or anybody wants to go ahead and prescribe them, they are free to do so. We are trying to crack down on them. But yes, it names and shames Pakistan, and it's another step towards the world realizing that Pakistan uses terror as an instrument of state policy, clearly. So, this would, and India's case against Pakistan in the FATF, so the world community is looking at it, yes, and it is naming and shaming Pakistan because these organizations operate out of Pakistan. It is the sovereign responsibility of the Pakistanis. When the Indians attacked Pakistan, the terrorist sites in Pakistan, they gave enough time post-Pahalgam, and India has been persistently saying that please dismantle the terror infrastructure or we will. So the world is slowly, coming around the fact that Pakistan is hand in glove with these terrorist organizations and uses them as strategic assets.
All right, Amrit, as the pressure is increasing, what kind of pressure could this exert on Pakistan, particularly as you also mentioned in light of its past with the FATF and ongoing concerns about the terrorist organizations operating within its borders?
Lipakshi, your audio is breaking. Could you repeat the last part of your question, please?
I said, as you mentioned about the FATF, what kind of ongoing concerns about terrorist organizations operating within its borders would Pakistan have?
Well, the concerns are that all the aid that the world gives to Pakistan, including the Bretton Woods institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, this is not directed at by the authorities in Pakistan, especially its military, for the welfare of the people or getting its economy back on track. A part of it goes in sponsoring terror activities, and that is the concern India has been consistently raising with the world bodies and at various international fora. So, Pakistan stands exposed when it comes to that they do aid and use these terrorist organizations against other countries like India.
All right, Amrit, thank you so much for all those details and information. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India has successfully tested Prithvi 2 and Agni 1 missiles. We will get you more on how significant this is with our reporter. India to unveil Waves Summit Outcome Report. INB Minister to inaugurate IICT campus and new Bharat Pavilion. An Amarnath Yatra resumes after brief suspension. Fresh batch of pilgrims departs from Jammu amid adequate security. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, displaying cutting-edge technological prowess and capabilities. India on Thursday successfully test-fired its nuclear-capable short-range ballistic missiles, Prithvi 2 and Agni 1, from the integrated test range in Chandipur, Odisha. The tests were conducted under the aegis of the Strategic Forces Command and validated all operational and technical parameters. The Prithvi 2 missile has a range of around 350 kilometers and can carry a payload of up to 500 kilograms. It is capable of delivering both conventional and nuclear warheads. The Agni 1 missile, with a range of 700 to 900 kilometers, can carry a payload of up to 1,000 kilograms. Both missiles are key components of India's nuclear deterrence arsenal. And on Friday, India also achieved a significant military achievement when the Indian Army successfully destroyed 2 high-speed flying aerial targets at high altitude in the Ladakh sector. This action was carried out through Akash Prime. Akash Prime, the upgraded variant of Akash weapon system, successfully engaged and destroyed 2 aerial high-speed unmanned targets during trials at high altitude in Ladakh sector. Well, the weapon system is customized to operate in altitude above 4,500 meters and has latest upgrades including indigenously developed radio frequency seeker. This success is being considered a major step in the field of Indian air defense capabilities. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh complimented the Indian Army, Defense Research and Development Organization and the industry on this remarkable achievement. He described the success as a significant boost to India's air defense capabilities, particularly for meeting high-altitude operational requirements. And a landmark achievement under India's push for Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Indian Navy will commission its first indigenously designed and built diving support vessel, INS Nistar, at Visakhapatnam. Equipped with cutting-edge deep-sea diving systems, Nistar strengthens India's operational capability and stands ready to rescue personnel from distressed submarines. INS Nistar's primary role includes conducting deep-sea diving operations and rescuing personnel from distressed submarines. To support these specialized missions, INS Nistar features advanced saturation diving systems and a dedicated diving complex spanning multiple decks. And for more, we have DD India's Akshay Dongre joining us on this. Well, Akshay, as India carried out successful test launches of the Prithvi 2 and Agni 1 ballistic missiles off the Odisha coast, what do these achievements indicate about the current state and advancement of India's missile and strategic defense capabilities?
Lipakshi, so essentially we are talking about multiple developments that have taken place as far as India testing its own indigenous, homegrown weapon systems as well as defensive systems as well. Now that includes, as you rightly mentioned, Prithvi 2, Agni 1, then there is Akash Prime as well as INS Nistar. So all of these weapon systems not only talk about or rather take care of one domain of modern warfare, but multiple domains. For example, the INS Nistar that is also indigenously developed for most of it takes care of India's growing submarine operations. Now, as you have rightly said, that this is a supportive diving vessel. It helps in salvage operations. It helps in retrieving any of the assets that have lost underwater. It also helps in recovering sunken submarines. It has capabilities of carrying out multiple operations when it comes to underwater domain. If you look at the Akash Prime, that is the upgraded version of the Akash air defense system that India already has and has demonstrated quite well during Operation Sindoor. What we have gotten to know from the DRDO as well as sources in the Indian Armed Forces is that the homegrown radio frequency that has now been embedded into the Akash Prime gives it further capabilities to withstand any kind of terrain, any kind of weather conditions, to pinpoint its target and hit it with pinpoint accuracy. And if you talk about that is the aerial domain as well as the land domain. And once you talk about the Agni 1, Prithvi 2, these are nuclear capable missiles. So we are essentially talking about almost every aspect of Indian defense needs as well as the growing needs that the Indian defense forces have, and how it is being catered to not by importing these assets but by developing them at home with our own technology and growing those technology to fine-tune the weapons that are used by the Indian defense forces. So it's a huge feat in the direction of self-reliance in defense sector. It's also a huge feat when it comes to pioneering technologies that are quite essential when it comes to modern warfare and any kind of tactical challenges that may be posed by any adversary country country in a situation of a conflict. So all in all, these developments are not only establishing Indian Defence Forces as a more reliable, more structured, and more self-reliant defence force, but also making India quite ready to step up its role as a major defence exporter to the world, because these kind of complex technologies that are being developed now are clearly because of the kind of weapon defense system that have been developed in the last several years, and now we are upgrading from that from simple defense systems to more complex ones like the ones we have seen.
Absolutely huge as far as the self-reliance of Indian defense sector is concerned. Also, Akshay, the commissioning of INS Nistar marks a significant milestone simultaneously in India's drive for indigenous defense production. How does this vessel stand apart from the conventional naval support ships, and why is it considered a critical asset for enhancing the Navy's underwater rescue and recovery capabilities?
Well, INS Nistar is specifically designed for underwater recovery, salvage operations, recovery of submarines, recovery of any assets that have been lost underwater, because quite naturally, if a country operates in a vast region such as the Indian Ocean region and the Indo-Pacific as well, apart from other operations that are taken place, or rather do take place around the year, most of the focus of the navies around the world are now moving toward underwater operations, and that brings in focus to submarines back again, especially the nuclear submarines that the world is looking more inclined towards, given their capabilities of operating for unlimited number of hours without the requirement of refueling. So in those kind of operations, if assets are lost, it's a huge loss for any country, for any armed force, and INS Nistar is specifically devised, or rather designed, to take on these challenges. So it's taking the Indian Navy ahead as far as self-reliance goals are concerned, and providing cutting-edge technologies not only in offensive sector but also in supportive rules for the assets that have been deployed for offensive rules that are carrying out other kind of challenges and other kind of operations. And Nistar is going to be in a major supportive roles for the submarine operation for the country.
All right, Akshay, thank you so much for all those details. And moving on, the Union Minister of Information and Broadcasting, Ashwini Vaishnaw, will unveil WAVE's outcome report on Friday in Mumbai. He will also inaugurate IICT, NFDC campus and Bharat Pavilion at Gulshan Mahal. Take a look.
After grand success of the maiden edition of World Audiovisual and Entertainment Summit in Mumbai, India will unveil outcome report of the summit on Friday. Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Ashwini Vaishnaw, will release WAVE's outcome report. The minister will also inaugurate new campus of Indian Institute of Creative Technology. IICT is envisioned as a world-class talent hub for India's creative economy. The institute is launching 18 specialized courses spanning gaming, post-production, animation, comics, and XR, all designed in close collaboration with industry leaders. The minister will also inaugurate Bharat Pavilion at Gulshan Mahal in NFDC campus. IICT has signed a memorandum of understanding with the University of York in UK, enabling academic exchanges, global certifications, and joint research. Tech giants including Google, Meta, and Microsoft, along with YouTube, Nvidia, and India's JioStar, have also pledged long-term collaborations with the institute to curriculum design, offer scholarships, support student internships, assist with startup incubation, and facilitate recruitment opportunities.
India has significantly transformed its digital content and immersive tech landscape in the last few years, including first WAVE Summit in May 2025 in Mumbai. Now the country is heading towards being one of the most sophisticated content hubs in the world. With my colleague Jitesh, this is Yogesh Kumar Seetal for DD India from Mumbai.
And moving on, the Amarnath Yatra resumed both the Baltal and Pahalgam routes this morning after being suspended for a day due to slippery conditions caused by recent rains. Authorities confirmed that hundreds of pilgrims were allowed to proceed towards the Holy Cave Shrine early on Thursday as the weather showed signs of improvement. Cloudy skies continued over the region, but officials said the Yatra was progressing smoothly and that all necessary safety measures were in place. Meanwhile, a fresh batch of pilgrims departed departed from the Bhagwati Nagar base camp in Jammu today, heading towards the twin base camps at Baltal in Ganderbal and Pahalgam in Anantnag districts. Adequate security and logistical arrangements are in place to ensure the safety and convenience of the pilgrims. And for over 2 millennia, a sacred duty has been passed down through generations. The care of the Jaya Shri Mahabodhi in Sri Lanka. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Modi visited the revered site at Arunadhapura, where the guardians of this holy tree are descendants of those who came from India with Sanghamita theory.
In April this year, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi stood before one of Buddhism's holiest symbols, the Jaya Shri Mahabodhi in Sri Lanka's Anuradhapura. This tree, grown from a sapling of the original Bodhi tree in India's Bodh Gaya, has stood here for over 2,200 years as a living bridge between India and Sri Lanka. Day after day, year after year, it is carefully tended to by the local villagers, quiet, unseen, and unwavering in their devotion. But what few know is that these villagers are not ordinary caretakers. They belong to a lineage entrusted with the Bodhi tree's protection since the time it first took root here. In the year 236 BC, Sanghamita Mahateri, daughter of Emperor Ashoka, arrived in Sri Lanka with a sacred sapling. Alongside her came bhikkhunis, princes, and skilled artisans tasked with safeguarding the tree and its rituals. Many of them settled near Tissaveva in villages like Vihara Bulankulama, Medavachia, and Kalanchia. Recently, India's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, visited one such village, the Vihara Kalanchia, where he met the Mahaduraya and heads of the 9 villages still responsible for preserving this legacy.
පොත්පත් වල සටහන් වෙලා තියෙන 2367ක් දැන් කප ගෙවි යනවා. තව 2499ක් ඉදිරියට පැවැතෙනවා. ඒ කාල සීමාව තුළ මාගේ පරම්පරාව දිවි හිමියෙන් අපි බෝධින්නාන්සේ ආරක්ෂා කරනවා කියලා සදී පැහැදී බැඳී සිටිනවා. උන්වහන්සේගේ වයසත් එක්ක ඉන්දියාවෙන් දැන් ගෙනපු දවසේ ඉඳන් තැන්පත් කරපු දවසේ ඉඳන් 2367යි. තව 2499ක් ඉදිරියට තියෙනවා කප. මේ පරම්පරාව මේ විදිහට ආරස්සල මේ පරම්පරාව රැකගෙන ඉදිරියටත් අපි බෝධින්නාන්සේ තනි කරන්න බෝධින්නාන්සේ රැක බලා ගන්නවා කියලා දිවි හිමියෙන් ප්‍රතිඥා දෙමින්.
Their story, passed down not through books but through devotion, echoes the royal decree of King Devanampiya Tissa, who on the advice of Arahat Mahinda entrusted these very families with the sacred task of protecting the Bodhi tree. What began as a royal mission has quietly evolved into a generational vow lived out daily at the Jaya Shri Mahabodhi temple. From the footsteps of Sanghamita Theri to the prayers of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the story of the Bodhi tree is not only written in leaves and soil, but in the living hands of those who care for it still. This is a legacy of devotion rooted in heritage and reaching across borders. For DT India, Ahmed Muin Farooqi from Anuradhapura.
And still to come in DT India News Hour. White House confirms Trump diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, no major health concerns found. UK lowers the voting age to 16 in landmark democratic reform ahead of 2029 elections. And golf on ice as North Pole hosts first ever clock golf championship in sub-zero twist.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. India hails the US's action to designate the Resistance Front as a terrorist organization. External Affairs Minister says move reiterates India's stand of zero tolerance for terrorism. Also says it reinforces Trump's demand for justice for the Pahalgam attack. In yet another test of its missile prowess, India successfully tests short-range ballistic missiles Prithvi 2 and Agni 1 off Odisha coast, demonstrating credible strategic deterrence capability. Tariff war of words escalates as Brazil's president terms Trump's threats as unacceptable blackmail, says there is no logic to US tariff threat. EU readies retaliatory list targeting US services. Massive victory for cryptocurrency as US House passes stablecoins bill, sends to President Trump to sign it into law. House also approves 2 other crypto bills. And in sports, Indian wrestler Sujeet Kalkal clinches gold medal at ranking series tournament in Hungary. And moving on to some other updates now, President of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, turned on his US counterpart by saying Donald Trump would not give orders to the President of the Republic after a 50% tariff on exports was announced last week. Lula said that Brazil would go forward with regulation and taxation of US tech firms, alleging that they promote violence and fake news under the argument of freedom of expression.
No way.
We are going to judge and tax the American digital companies because Donald Trump did not even deign to send a letter as we do to another president of the Republic and instant summoned us. The letter does not mention negotiation.
Well, in a letter last week, Trump attributed the tariff set to start in August to Brazil's treatment of former President Jair Bolsonaro and to alleged unfair trade practices by Brazil against U.S. companies. Lula and members of his cabinet have rejected the reasoning behind the tariffs and insisted on Brazil's sovereignty while calling for trade negotiations with the United States. Also, Donald Trump warned Brazil once again to drop charges against former President Jair Bolsonaro over an alleged coup attempt, saying he would be watching closely for a response just a week after threatening to impose punishing tariffs on the South American nation. Trump on Thursday posted on social media a letter addressed to Bolsonaro, casting the right-wing leader as the victim of terrible treatment and demanding again that his trial should end immediately. Trump said he was very concerned about the attacks on free speech, both in Brazil and in the United States. Trump last week threatened to hit Brazil with a 50% tariff starting on August 1st, citing its treatment of Bolsonaro, the country's former president. The Brazilian president, in a televised address to the nation, said that Brazil had always been open to dialogue with the United States. He, however, warned that any attempt to interfere in Brazil's justice system was a serious attack on national sovereignty. Also, former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro is on trial over charges of plotting a coup to stop Lula da Silva from taking office in 2023. Despite being barred from holding public office until the year 2030, Bolsonaro insists he will run against Lula in a rematch in next year's election, arguing he's the only figure on the right who can defeat the incumbent. Lula has also hinted that he could run for re-election. And White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said at a press conference on Thursday that the European Union continues to be eager in negotiating trade with the U.S. Leavitt added that President Trump would not accept a postponement of the August 1st deadline when higher duties would come into effect.
As for the European Union, they continue to be very eager in negotiating with our country for obvious reasons on ways to lower their tariff and their non-tariff barriers that we have long said harm our workers and our companies. So the President's trade team continue to be in talks with the European Union.
And updates on Syria's situation now. The United States condemned violence in Syria, calling on all parties to step back and engage in meaningful dialogue that leads to a lasting ceasefire. Talking to media, State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said that U.S. did not support recent Israeli strikes on Syria.
The United States unequivocally condemns the violence. All parties must step back and engage in meaningful dialogue that leads to a lasting ceasefire. The United States did not support recent Israeli strikes. We are engaging diplomatically with Israel and Syria at the highest levels, both to address the present crisis and reach a lasting agreement between the two sovereign states. President Trump has outlined his clear vision of a prosperous Middle East and stable Syria at peace with itself and its neighbors. Peace among neighbors, including Israel and Syria, is a critical component of this vision.
Well, Israel launched airstrikes in Damascus on Wednesday while also hitting government forces in the south. The airstrikes blew up part of Syria's defense ministry and hit near the presidential palace. Israel said it was intervening on behalf of the Druze community after communal clashes. And in a major overhaul of the country's democratic system, the UK government has lowered the voting age to 16 in time for the next general election. 16 and 17-year-olds celebrated their newly granted right to vote, but cautioned that proper education was vital to boost turnout and protect young voters from political misinformation on social media. The government, on its part, has stressed that the proposed changes were part of an effort to boost public trust in democracy and would align voting rights across Britain, bringing UK-wide elections in line with Scotland and Wales. There are about 1.6 million 16 and 17-year-olds in the UK. Just over 48 million people were eligible to vote at the last election, in which turnout fell to its lowest since 2001. The next election is due in 2029. Also, Brazil's Congress passed a controversial bill on July 17th, easing environmental licensing laws, drawing backlash ahead of the COP30 climate summit hosted in Belém this year. The legislation, backed by agribusiness interest, passed through 67 to 116 in the lower house, despite opposition from environmentalists, President Lula's cabinet and EU lawmakers. Critics say it could hurt Brazil's environmental reputation ahead of COP30. Lula might veto parts of the bill, but Congress can reverse his veto. The Supreme Court may also review it. Supporters believe the changes will boost economic growth, but others warn it could cause serious harm to nature. And Mexican authorities announced the destruction of an alleged clandestine laboratory used for producing synthetic drugs in Culiacan, Sinaloa on Thursday. The operation, led by the Mexican Navy in collaboration with other security forces, resulted in the seizure of nearly a ton of methamphetamine and various chemical precursors. According to a bulletin from the Secretary of the Navy, the economic impact on organized crime groups is estimated at 81 million pesos. The laboratory, measuring approximately 80 by 30 meters, was capable of producing up to 245 additional kilograms of methamphetamine. And the 42nd edition of the Jerusalem Film Festival kicked off on Thursday under the shadow of the Gaza war and the recent Iran-Israel conflict. The Jerusalem Film Festival held its traditional opening event at Sultan's Pool, attended by film enthusiasts, dignitaries and invited guests. Hollywood star Gal Gadot and American producer Lawrence Bender received special awards of recognition, with Gadot also serving as a guest of honor. During her speech at the acclaimed festival, Gadot expressed hope for an end to the war and the safe return of the hostages. And let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The North Pole witnessed a quirky golf tournament, with golfers swapping well-kept greens for ice at the inaugural North Pole Clock Golf Championship. The tournament's participants played clock golf, a Victorian-era variation. While clock golf was mostly played in gardens for mature golfers, this new championship adjusts the rules to suit the cold and icy North Pole setting. Archaeologists working along the shores of Lake Ohrid in Albania have uncovered the oldest known human settlement built on the European lake, dating back as far as 8,000 years. The discovery was made near the village of Lin, where researchers from Switzerland and Albania have spent years studying the area. Working about 3 meters underwater, the team has recovered wooden stilts once used to support ancient homes. A new immersive experience called Elvis Evolution opened in London, allowing fans of Elvis Presley to walk in the king of rock and roll's footsteps. The multimedia attraction combines archival footage, live theatre, music performances of Presley's iconic stages. Audiences first go backstage into a fake NBC studio, then move on to a copy of the stage where Elvis once performed. Visitors move through different scenes in Elvis's life, from his humble beginnings in Mississippi to Memphis and finally a global stardom. A silly panda cub covered all over in mud after a messy playtime has been captured on camera in southwest China's Sichuan province. The cub, named Fei Hong, was trying her best to climb over a lying trunk, but the task proved too tricky for the youngster. Her muddy misadventure is a reminder of just how playful and clumsy young pandas can be as they explore their world. And some weather updates now. First up from India, monsoon intensifies its grip across India. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a red alert for Rajasthan, Karnataka and Kerala. The whole nation remains under alert except for Punjab, Haryana, Delhi and West Bengal. Extremely heavy rainfall likely to lash Uttar Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, East Uttar Pradesh during 17th to 23rd of July. In Jehanabad, Bihar, the Dardhar River has overflowed its banks following days of heavy rainfall, inundating low-lying areas and disrupting normal life. Meanwhile, in Varanasi, relentless showers have led to significant water accumulation at Asi Ghat, resulting in localized flooding and raising concerns. Several educational institutions across Karnataka will remain closed on Friday amid prediction of heavy rains. Kodagu and Udupi district authorities announced a closure of schools as torrential rains continue to lash the southern Indian state. Considering the continuous rainfall, educational institutions will be closed in Madikeri, Virajpet and Somwarpet districts as well. Meanwhile, heavy rain has set off floods in streets of Independence, Kansas on Thursday, prompting nearly 24 rescues of people stranded in their cars. Rescuers waded through water to reach cars stuck in floods overnight. They continued working through the morning, even as the rain started to taper off. No injuries or deaths have been reported. Areas to the west and north of the city were also overrun with heavy rains. Well, heavy monsoon rains across Pakistan's Punjab province killed at least 63 people and injured nearly 300 in the past 24 hours. Provincial officials said on Thursday, bringing the nationwide death toll from the rains to at least 159 since late June. The downpours triggered flooding and building collapses, with most fatalities caused by root failures in weaker homes. The National Disaster Management Authority said more than 1,000 homes had been damaged and 6 livestock were killed. Pakistan's National Weather Forecasting Centre said the current spell would persist for 3 more days, with another round of rain expected next weekend, particularly in northern regions. Heavy rain in South Korea for a third consecutive day has forced over 5,000 people into shelters, left at least 4 dead and caused significant damage to property and infrastructure as of Friday. Torrential rain warnings remain in effect for most of the country's western and southern regions, and the Weather Service has advised extreme caution against landslides and flooding through Saturday. The Safety Ministry said 2 people were trapped in cars on flooded roads and another died in a basement under flooded water in the central South Chungcheong province. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will hold an emergency meeting on the weather on Friday. And now let's go live across to Mumbai, where Union Minister of Information Broadcasting Ashwini Vaishnaw is speaking at a function where WAVE's outcome report will be unveiled today.
इंटीग्रल पार्ट बनाया गया है कोर्स करिकुलम के लिए। जैसा हमने देखा जो वर्ल्ड के बेस्ट एजुकेशनल सिस्टम्स हैं उसमें इंडस्ट्री और एकेडेमिया आपस में इंटीग्रेटेड रहते हैं। आईआईसीटी में गूगल, मेटा, एनवीडिया, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट, एप्पल, अडोबी, डब्ल्यूपीपी ये सब के साथ ऑलरेडी फॉर्मल पार्टनरशिप्स हो गई हैं। सबके साथ फॉर्मल पार्टनरशिप साइन हो गई। 4 यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के साथ ऑलरेडी टाइप चल रहा है। एक के साथ साइन हो गया है एमओयू यॉर्क यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ, और 17 इंडस्ट्री अभी आपने देखे कंप्लीटली इंडस्ट्री अलाइंड प्रोग्राम्स हैं। वीएफएक्स के, पोस्ट प्रोडक्शन के, एक्सआर के, गेमिंग के, एनिमेशन के, और सब एडवांस्ड प्रोग्राम्स हैं। और उसमें ट्रेनर्स की ट्रेनिंग भी इंक्लूडेड है। इस फर्स्ट ईयर में आईआईसीटी के कैंपस से भी हैव केप्ट अ टारगेट ऑफ अबाउट 300 persons including trainers should get fully trained. They should graduate from the campus in the first year itself. 300 लोगों का, 300 स्टूडेंट्स और ट्रेनर्स का ग्रेजुएशन का टारगेट रखा गया है। कोर्सेज 3 महीने के भी होंगे, 6 महीने के भी होंगे, फुल 1 year के भी होंगे, 2 years के प्रोग्राम्स भी होंगे और लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोग्राम्स भी होंगे। इट्स अ मेडली ऑफ प्रोग्राम्स बिकॉज ईच एंड एवरी activity, each and every field would require a different type of course curriculum to be developed. मैं आप सबको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूँ। मैं विशेषकर मुंबई को बधाई देना चाहूँगा कि मुंबई के लिए बहुत गौरव की बात है, गर्व की बात है कि मुंबई जो कल्चर का कैपिटल है, जो कि फिल्म और क्रिएटिविटी का कैपिटल है, वहाँ पर क्रिएटिविटी का पहला इंस्टीट्यूशन बना है। और इस तरह के और भी कई इंस्टीट्यूशंस बनेंगे भविष्य में। जैसे आईआईटी सिस्टम बना, आईएम सिस्टम बना, वैसे ही आईआईसीटी का सिस्टम बनेगा। ऐसा प्रधानमंत्री जी की बहुत बड़ी कल्पना है। आप सबको बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। नमस्कार।
Well, you were watching live from Mumbai, where WAVE's outcome report will be unveiled today. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US stocks set record highs amid strong retail sales and earnings overcoming tariff concerns. After struggling with form in recent months, Wimbledon finalist Geopolitics break from tennis.
Launch a bombing campaign against Iran. The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. We read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Now. Lipakshi Khurana, and on to some business news now. The U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday passed a bill to create a regulatory framework for U.S. dollar-pegged cryptocurrency tokens known as stablecoins, sending the bill to President Donald Trump. 2 other bills passed by the House, known as the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act and the Clarity Act, will now go to the Senate, where their ultimate fates are still unknown. House lawmakers also passed a bill developing a regulatory framework framework for crypto that will move on to the Senate for consideration. The stablecoin bill, dubbed the Genius Act, received bipartisan support, with many Democrats joining Republicans to back the proposed federal rules. The vote on the market structure bill, known as the Clarity Act, was also notably bipartisan. If signed into law, the bill would require tokens to be backed by liquid assets such as US dollars and short-term treasury bills, and for issuers to publicly disclose the composition of their reserves on a monthly basis. And U.S. stocks rose to fresh record highs on Thursday as markets focused on solid U.S. retail sales data and corporate earnings rather than lingering worries about President Donald Trump's tariffs. The broad-based S&P 500 rose 0.5%, while the tech-rich NASDAQ Composite Index gained 0.7%, its fourth straight closing record. The Dow Jones Industrial Average also climbed 0.5%, still below its record closing level. U.S. retail sales rebounded more than expected in June, but some of the increase likely reflected higher prices for some goods exposed to tariffs. Thursday's market gains follow a dramatic wobble during the prior session when Trump said he was highly unlikely to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. However, he left the door open to the possibility of ousting him and renewed his criticism of the central bank chief for not cutting U.S. interest rates. Well, Asian stocks too followed the suit, recording modest gain at the open. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index rose 0.2% at the open. Tech stock rose as a bullish outlook from Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company bolstered confidence in artificial intelligence spending. And time now for some sports news. Indian wrestler Sujeet Kalkal won the gold medal in the 65 kg men's freestyle category at the ranking series tournament in Hungary. The Indian wrestler produced a clinical performance in the final to beat four-time European medalist Ali Rahimzadeh of Azerbaijan 5-1 in Budapest. This was the first gold medal won by an Indian wrestler in any of the ranking series event this year. India won another medal in the men's 57 kg category, with Rahul bagging a bronze after defeating Germany's Niklas Stechle 4-0. And three-time Grand Slam finalist Ons Jabeur has decided to take a break from competitive tennis. The 30-year-old has struggled with her form in recent months, failing to get past the third round of a major this year. The two-line Wimbledon finalist campaign came to a disappointing end at the All England Club last month as she retired from a first-round clash due to a long medical timeout. The former world number 2 suffers from asthma and experienced breathing difficulties at this year's Australian Open. And today, the world pauses to celebrate Nelson Mandela International Day, marking the birth of South Africa's first black president. It's a day when the spirit of Madiba continues to inspire millions, a reminder of his relentless fight against apartheid, his deep to human rights and belief in reconciliation. As a report. Nelson Mandela's journey started as a young lawyer helping to set up South Africa's first black legal firm. He was key in the 1952 Defiance campaign, pushing for peaceful resistance. His 27 years of unjust imprisonment strengthened his resolve, solidifying his status as an unyielding symbol of resistance for oppressed people everywhere. As president, Mandela dismantled apartheid, leading South Africa to its first multiracial democratic elections in 1994. His dedication to justice and equality resonated globally, making him a moral compass for the world. Even after leaving office, he continued to champion peace, human rights, and the fight against HIV/AIDS. India held a special place in Mandela's heart. Their shared history of fighting colonialism and discrimination created a strong bond. Mandela often called Mahatma Gandhi his political guru. He was deeply influenced by Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance, which interestingly began in South Africa. This connection was clear when India was the very first foreign country Mandela visited after his release in 1990. That same year, India conferred him with its highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna, making him the first non-Indian to receive it. Nelson Mandela will be remembered not just for ending apartheid, but for the universal values he embodied. His life teaches us that even against overwhelming odds, change is possible
when we commit to justice and more peaceful world. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available in both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from Alphaser in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.